Hello and welcome to this Memorial Day Sunday stream. If you are watching this later, and you very well might be, because you might be off barbecuing, eating some potato salad, spending time with family and or friends, congratulations. I hope you're having a great time. If you find yourself here, welcome. Hello. It has been a while since I've been here. I've been, how can I put this? So first of all, you probably already know that I suffer from migraines. And so 2 weeks ago, I had a terrible one. And then last week I was away on some business, which has turned out lovely. And I am excited to share with you once it's all finished. I can't share now, but that's coming along pretty nicely. Anyway, I absolutely abhor having a migraine. I'm on some new medication. We'll see how it works. Hopefully it works pretty good, because I have no idea what the end result is going to be. Mostly I don't want a migraine. Right? Mostly migraines are absolutely dreadful, and I probably wouldn't wish them on my worst enemies. All right, so, hypnotic inspiration can strike from almost anywhere, as you probably know. There's a lot of magical type things, and you can sort of turn them into hypnosis sessions or triggers. I once had somebody that I worked with who was really, really fascinated by transformations, and the whole pig scene in Willow is something that they wanted to have recreated in them. Not the scene itself, but they wanted to be transformed from a man to a pig. So we had done that a whole bunch of times. And it's sort of fascinating to think that with hypnosis, you can make somebody's brain feel all of those things, right? And I've been listening to all these YouTube videos. I almost never watch them. I'm always doing something, and if I'm doing something, especially at my warehouse, I just want to listen. I've got to keep my eyes free for other stuff. So I pay attention to the stuff I have to get done, and then I listen to all these other things. And I've been listening to these stories that people put online at 2x speed. I wish I could speed it up a little bit more, but that's the limit, sadly. So every once in a while I hear something that makes me go, that's really fascinating. Some of the stories that I've been listening to include like people standing up for themselves or overcoming some terrible tragedy or personal development challenge in their lives. They're inspiring. Anyway, so one of the ones that I was listening to recently had this line, and it just like clicked in my brain. And the line was, "The authentic self asks questions, the programmed self follows instructions." Now, as somebody who does love a little bit of coercive hypnosis, who does love the idea that you can't help but obey, who does love the idea that you're going to be programmed and brainwashed, that line really struck a note inside me. And I thought that today might be a good day to make something of that particular line, to think about how the way that your brain could become more programmed to simply automate some functions inside you to find yourself responding and following instructions could be helpful. Now, the way you find yourself following instructions, I guess it depends on what those things are, right? The stories that I was listening to have absolutely no bearing, right? They have absolutely no bearing on the ways in which I would give instructions. They were terribly coercive over long periods of time, definitely, abusive situations. And that's not what we're here for. We're here for a good, fun time. But what are the sorts of things that I might want somebody to follow along with? The things that are easy to program and easy to make happen, like boop. Like if I say deep sleep, you might have already found yourself responding, right? And those are the types of things that I really enjoy. Those are the types of things that I really like to have somebody surrender and give into. Why? Because it shows that some part of your brain is automatically listening and following along, and honestly wanting to pay attention to, wanting to surrender to, wanting to give into. Don't you like the idea of being alert and then all of a sudden being in a state of trance that has simply been conditioned into you? Don't you like the idea of knowing that somebody somewhere has been given the ability, as long as it's safe and appropriate for you, of course, to say something like deep sleep and snap their fingers, or not, or tap their nose and say boop, and you have to do the same? Don't you like the idea of knowing that somebody could go like this and you would find yourself just fluttering your eyes and slumping down into trance? Don't you like the idea that I could share with you my obnoxiously shiny ring, if your eyes were still open, of course, and you couldn't tear yourself away from it? Because it just feels so good to look, and it feels so good to drop, and feels so good to go deeply into trance. And of course, the more you accept that these things feel really amazing, the more effortlessly you can be programmed. And the more effortlessly you can be programmed, that you would just follow instructions. So what other kinds of instructions might you follow along with? Maybe you follow instructions as to getting to bed a certain time or waking up a certain time. Maybe you start to follow instructions about exercising more regularly, or even just starting out with some stretching. Maybe you find yourself following instructions about eating more healthfully. Maybe you find yourself following instructions about taking really good care of your teeth or your skin. Maybe you find yourself taking instructions about how good it feels to obey. And you notice that it just feels so good to obey internally. And because it feels so good to obey internally, and maybe externally too, right? Maybe you find yourself wanting to start obeying more and more. Like you'd start to obey all sorts of things as long as they were good for you and healthy for you. And maybe you'd find yourself writing down lists of things that you'd really like to start doing on a regular basis that are good for you, that you just want to obey doing. You want to make sure that your unconscious mind is just thrilled and excited to make happen. And then when you do these things, you find yourself feeling very, very sexy, perhaps. And the more you find yourself doing these things that you need to do, like, I don't know, laundry, or the dishes, or sweeping and mopping your floor, or scrubbing your bathroom tiles once in a while, everything your brain starts to do begins to feel better. Maybe it's dressing in a certain way. Maybe it's doing homework or studying for something for your work. Maybe your brain has these ideas about ways in which you can make yourself an absolutely fabulously better person. Everyone could be better at something, right? And you find yourself thinking about how good it feels to make those lists about ways in which you could actually be better and things that you could be better at. And then you begin to spend a little bit of time every day working on those things and getting better at those things and finding yourself, I don't know, becoming better at those things. And as you find yourself becoming better at those things, it feels so good to do those things that all of a sudden you can't stop doing them, because of course they need to get done. These are things that have to happen, right? These are tasks and chores and activities that you have to do. Like, you brush your teeth twice a day, don't you? You do laundry once every week or 3, right? And perhaps your brain can begin to take more and more delight in the idea that it just feels so good to make these things happen. So maybe your brain can think about how very good it feels to make a list of all the things that you actually need to get done that you don't really do as well as you could or should. That's step 1. And then your brain thinks that it's going to pick one of those things. This is not to say that you won't still do some of those other things, but your brain's going to pick one of those things. And then when your brain picks one of those things, you're going to find that when you do that thing, whatever it is, that your brain begins to activate the pleasure center. So that when you do that thing, while you do it, it begins to feel so good. Do you know how to activate the pleasure center in your brain? Your brain already knows how good it feels to do certain things. So your brain's just simply going to move that one other thing that you're going to start to do into that same place. It's like you're going to put it right on top of that other thing in your mind's eye, in your mind. If you could imagine that first thing, doesn't matter what it is, think about what that is, and your brain takes the second thing that you have to do. Maybe it's laundry, maybe it's brushing your teeth, I don't know, I don't care. Your brain's going to take that second thing and you're going to put it in that same space in your brain where that thing is. And you're going to make it the same everything. Same brightness, transparency, size, intensity, and color. Just going to put it right there and going to kind of merge it. And it's going to feel so good. It's going to feel so good when you do that thing. And as your brain thinks about how to make that happen, unconsciously, of course. On a conscious level, you don't have to think about it, although I did just describe it consciously, so perhaps your conscious self can participate right now and think about how to make that happen, and then your unconscious self can adjust in any ways that it needs to really make that stick. And then when you find yourself doing that, you'll notice how good it feels to do that thing. Does it give you exactly the same sensation? Well, I don't know, maybe not. But when you find yourself doing it, and it feels really good, every time you do it, it just reinforces itself, and it begins to feel better and better and better. So that's good right there, right? So every single time you find yourself doing that, and it feels better and better and better, and you can find yourself feeling what that's like, you want to do it more. Because we are built on a reward system. If something feels good, tastes good, gives us some pleasure in some way, we keep doing it. This is why, even though we were built to experience, say, honey a couple times a year, or fruit at certain times of the year, now we can have these things year-round. And so I have a daily smoothie, and my brain absolutely short-circuits itself because it's absolutely delicious, and I get to have one every day, right? And have to go out and pick the strawberries or the blueberries, although I think it is actually blueberry season in Florida. Anyway, so your brain, you just feel how good it is to do that task. Your brain can know that you have given yourself a shortcut to experiencing pleasure when you do that thing. And you find yourself doing that thing on your list, whether you wrote it down or it's just mental, doesn't really matter. And then your unconscious mind begins to make that happen again and again and again. Deep sleep. And as your brain makes that thing happen again and again and again, that you get pleasure from doing this thing, in the same way that you get pleasure from doing the things that you want to get pleasure from, your unconscious mind begins to associate pleasure from that list, from the things on that list, and you find yourself walking around in the state of utter bliss, as long as it's safe and appropriate to do that, and then all your things get done. It's a win-win situation, really. So let your unconscious mind think about how good that feels, that you get to experience all the pleasure from doing these things that you should be doing anyway, and then you get to experience more and more pleasure from doing these things additionally. So this is the kind of programming that we really like, right? As adults into hypnosis, recreational and erotic hypnosis, you find yourself experiencing this great amount of pleasure, and how fantastic it is that we get to experience something that we normally wouldn't. And we get to do something that we normally wouldn't. And on top of that, you're being conditioned and programmed to obey. You're being conditioned and programmed to follow somebody else's instructions, and it feels so good that you want to keep making that happen. And every single time you find yourself following somebody else's instructions, doing something that benefits you, not only because the doing of it benefits you, but also because it makes you feel so very good when you do it, and also because it makes you feel so very good because you're following instructions. You have all these multiple layers of how good it feels to simply follow along and make these things happen. So, and if you want to have an orgasm every single time you put away the dishes from the dishwasher, or every single time you find yourself cleaning up the bathroom after your shower, or every single time you use your sink, you just are like, oh, I'm just going to tidy up this time. It doesn't mean that anybody else has to know that you're experiencing that, but you could know how good it feels for you to do these things. And it can be absolutely astonishing how damn good your house could look and how organized and clean everything could be. How much knowledge you get in your brain because you're like, well, I have to study this report for work, or I have to create this report for work. However you find yourself having to encourage your brain to do the things that you have to do anyway, isn't it nicer to do it and to get some important benefit out of it for yourself? The answer is yes. The answer is definitely yes. So let your unconscious mind think about how good that pleasure feels for you. Let your brain think about how good pleasure in general feels for you. And if you're the kind of person that's like, pleasure, I could live without it. It's not that big a deal. Because there are people like that who don't actually experience pleasure in the ways that, you could experience pleasure. There are some people who just don't necessarily enjoy a lot of things in life. First of all, I'm sorry, because there are a wide amount of things that you can find yourself experiencing delight and joy from, and you can take pleasure from those things. So even if you don't want to experience something that might be considered sexual pleasure, I'm going to ask you to find yourself experiencing the pleasure that you like best. So maybe it's like a food thing that, when you eat, you experience this pleasure because all the textures and all the flavors and all the smells of whatever you're eating just combine in such a way that when you take a bite, your mouth goes, and you can't help yourself, right? Or you see this beautiful flower. Like I have these beautiful plumerias in the front of my house. I have two colors. I have this massive yellow plant that has been growing for years and has been blooming for years. And then last year, I had a new plant. The plant's not new. It has also been growing for years, but last year was the first year it bloomed, and they're pink. Cool. So last year it got blooms for the first time, and it smells different than the yellow ones. And this year it bloomed again even more because it's, growing. And they smell phenomenal. The yellow ones smell different than the pink ones. I think I like the pink ones better, but they both smell very, very nice. And I was sort of fascinated because, if you like perfumes at all, or if you ever go to get, I'm not a candle person at all, but if you ever go into a store that sells, for example, candles or other scents, they might have a plumeria scent, right? And I'm like, well, which one is it? Because my plumeria smell exactly different from each other. Anyway, so maybe you find yourself having visual delight from something, like these plants, these flowers are both absolutely stunning. Maybe you like to look at, birds or bugs or something else, somebody, a beautiful person. Allow your unconscious mind to take pleasure from wherever you can get it. Okay? I don't want to limit you, and you probably don't want to limit yourself either. So wherever you get your pleasure, allow your brain to be in this receptive spot where when you find yourself doing the things that you have to do, that you can discover that it feels really good to make those things happen. It feels really good physically, mentally, emotionally. Maybe there's some people that you hang out with, or there's something that you find yourself doing, and when you do those things, your brain just goes, oh, I feel very happy, very satisfied, very content right now. Whatever that kind of pleasure actually means to you, allow your unconscious mind to know that you can experience that when you do these things. It has to be meaningful for you, but let your brain think about what that means, and then just let it grow. Let it get bigger and bigger and bigger. And as your brain thinks about how good it is to experience whatever kind of pleasure you want or need to experience in order to keep doing these things, let it keep going. Let it get bigger and more amazing. Let every sense that you have, that you can experience this pleasure in, get more and more intense. Yes, if you experience oral pleasure, go ahead and allow that to become even better. Do you get the ASMR tingles at the back of your head? However you experience pleasure, allow your brain to expand upon that as much as you possibly can. And remember, simply because you do experience pleasure in one area, it is not cutting it off in any other area. Allow your brain to go, well, if I can do it here, I can do it there. And let your brain figure out, it's not a conscious thing, just let your unconscious mind figure out how you can spread something from one place in your body to another, or move it from one place to another. Absolutely doable, especially with pleasure. Human beings are very, very good at making sure that the thing that you want to have a good time with, that you can have a good time with. So let your brain get into that position where you can keep letting yourself deep sleep. Experience that sense of pleasure and delight from doing the things that you must do, the things that are on your list, the things that your brain says, gotta make this happen. So you may as well find yourself experiencing delight from the things that you have to do. Because the more you can find yourself becoming programmed to experience pleasure from the things that you have to do, the more likely you are to do them. And the more likely you are to find yourself doing them automatically. The more likely you are to find yourself doing them without having to be told. The more likely you are to find yourself doing them without even realizing that you have done them. Think about what that's like. The idea that you can automatically take care of things that have to get done, and then you realize, oh, I don't have to do them. They've already gotten finished. And then you have all this time to do other things that you might discover you really want to do. I would like your unconscious mind right now to think about how good it feels as you listen to the sound of my voice, to go effortlessly and easily into a more intense state of trance. Can you do that right now? Can you allow your unconscious mind to think about what that means to go from conscious to more unconscious? To enter an altered state that allows your brain to know that it just feels really good as you listen to the sound of my voice to disconnect a little bit from consciousness. Whether your eyes are open or closed, it doesn't matter. But to allow your unconscious mind as it listens to think about how good it can feel to unconsciously do things and to know that you can program or be programmed yourself to do things with pleasure, to do things unconsciously, to do things so that you free up time for yourself to do the things that maybe you thought you didn't have enough time for, or to free yourself up to realize that you've done these things. Wouldn't it be funny? Like, what if you're a big gamer? Like, what if you really just like to play games a lot? And what if you think, you want to play games so much that you don't have time to do all those other things? But there's always like little breaks in between a lot of these games, especially if you're playing, games with other people. Maybe you're playing some popular games that have like matches. You have to wait in between those. Your unconscious mind can just take advantage of some of those breaks in between things. You have to take a pee break. Your brain's like, cool, we're going to take like 5 minutes. We're also going to go pee, but we're going to do these other things in between. And your unconscious mind makes it feel so good for you to do those things that you might not even realize that you have made those things happen. That you have taken that time and you've scrubbed up the dishes. You've put away some laundry. You have swept or vacuumed something that needed to be swept. You have taken out the trash. Like, I know I revert to home tasks a lot, but it doesn't really matter what the task is. As long as your unconscious mind thinks about how important it is that you're not simply living like a little slug listening to hypnosis audios all the time. If you are listening to hypnosis audios all the time and your unconscious mind still got you up and moving and had you do all those things, think about how fun that idea is. The idea that you're programmed to make these things happen, whether or not your conscious self is aware, whether or not your conscious self has anything to do with it, and to know that every single time your unconscious mind makes those things happen, that it feels so good, that it is so pleasurable in whichever way for you constitutes pleasure, that your brain continuously programs itself, and reprograms itself to keep making these changes, to keep making these actions, to keep doing these things that make you neat and tidy, to make you feel really good, to make you so very happy. Let your brain think about these things for a bit. Think about all the things that you don't normally want to spend any time doing. Think about the things that you kind of hate to do. And think about how that might overlap with your list of the things that you have to do, right? And as your brain thinks about those things, the things that you kind of hate to do and the things that you kind of have to do, the things that you put off, let your unconscious mind focus on those things and go, here's our list. You're going to start with one thing and you're going to do it. You're going to put that over that pleasure spot, whatever that means for you in your brain. And then when you get that one thing down and you can find yourself unconsciously doing that thing so that on a conscious level it just seems like it's always done, then your brain's going to add the rest of those things one at a time until you are so very completely programmed to do all the things that you have to do all the things that you should do, to do all the things that you really need to make happen. But you don't have to think about it, and you don't have to spend a lot of time doing it. You just discover that you want to do it, that you find yourself automatically doing it, and you do it because there's a reward for making that happen. And whether that reward is something that you find yourself considering pleasure right now, or your brain recalculates and makes into pleasure for you, notice that you just find yourself doing these things automatically. Notice that your unconscious mind just delights in feeling how good it is to program you to make these things happen more and more easily. Let your brain think about how good it feels for you to automatically calculate how good it can feel for you to do these tasks, whether it's tapping your finger on your nose, whether it's cracking the books for study, whether it's cleaning up after dinner, whether it's something else that just popped into your head, the thing that you don't really like to do but have to do. And your brain can think about all the ways in which you can reward yourself with some kind of pleasure to automatically make yourself make these things happen. Think about how fascinating that concept is. Think about how good that thing is. Think about how Manchurian candidate that idea is. The idea that you could be programmed to just do these things without having to think about it. You're thinking about it now, but your unconscious mind can keep thinking about it until you make this happen. Your unconscious mind can keep thinking about it until you are so good at doing these things and so good at receiving pleasure, delight, joy from making these things happen that your space, your brain, is clean and tidy. And your body feels really good from doing these things. Let your unconscious mind hold on to those thoughts really, really strongly while you find yourself sinking down deeper into trance. Can you drop into a deep sleep even more effortlessly now than before? Let me bring out the shiny. Can you drop down deeper into trance now? Maybe every single time you see this, your brain sparkles and tingles and feels pleasure somewhere. Maybe your body feels it somewhere. I don't know. Whatever happens, however that happens, let your unconscious mind think about how good you can make yourself feel when you do any of those things on that list of yours. Remember, it's your list. It's not my list. I just want you to feel pleasure when you do those things. And if you feel pleasure when you do those things, and you find yourself doing them more and more easily, more and more often, as you find yourself doing them more quickly, more effortlessly, how much better can it feel to do them? How much better can you feel that you've gotten them done? How much more time do you have to do something else? What does it feel like to notice that you have no more tasks or chores to do? That's something, right? That's something that also can give you some kind of pleasure. And your brain can think about how good all of that feels while you find yourself dropping down more effortlessly into trance now. And your brain can think about how good it feels while you find yourself simply giving in more and more to the things I say. While your unconscious mind can give in more and more delightfully to the idea that you want to make this happen. As though these ideas that you want to make these things happen are a reward in and of itself, as though you want to make these things happen, and it becomes something compelling for you. Because the idea of being programmed to be helpless to my words can be appealing in and of itself, and the idea that you find yourself wanting to experience more pleasure can also become a compelling idea in and of itself. And the idea of combining those things, that you are simply a helpless pleasure puppet, can even become more appealing as well, right? Let that idea that you can become a helpless pleasure puppet and you can find yourself doing these things because I said so, because you can't help but unconsciously come up with these lists and begin to make these things happen and move those things you have to do into the same area where the pleasure stuff already exists in your brain, so that when you do them, you feel that same kind of pleasure, and then it becomes this weird compulsion that makes you find yourself having to do them. And then, of course, the more you find yourself doing them, the better it feels, and the more you can't help but just make those things happen. So you can discover how good it feels to be a helpless pleasure puppet, and maybe your unconscious mind can think about how important that feels to get those things done with the pleasure, to get those things done, to be obedient, to be such a helpless pleasure puppet, and to think about how good it feels to know that you can't help but just make these things happen because you've been told to do them, and you're going to make them happen. So let your brain think about that for a little while. Let your unconscious mind delight in the idea that you want to be a helpless pleasure puppet, and you want to find yourself living in a space that has everything done. Because if anyone was to see it, you would want to feel pride at your space having everything done. You would want to feel good when somebody else looked at your space and was like, oh, this is lovely. You would want to feel pride if somebody else came to your space and you were like, yeah, I take care of this myself. And then you could feel like a rush of pleasure when you said that, when you knew that you had taken care of everything and everything was as it should be, and your brain would feel really good. Or when you handed in that report with all of that research you'd had to do whether for school or for work or for whatever it had to be, that vacation you were going to take that still needed some kind of research having to be done for it. It doesn't matter what it is. Your brain can know that it feels really good to do the work, to feel the pleasure from doing the work, to get conditioned to feeling the pleasure from doing the work, and to discover that it's important for you to find yourself so happy at being programmed to be a helpless little pleasure puppet, right? It feels really good. Think about that. So drop and sink down deeper and deeper right now into trance and think about all the things that are on your list unconsciously. Think about all the things that your brain is going to make sure that you find yourself doing. Think about all the things that your unconscious mind wants to make sure that you start taking care of from now on, because your brain realizes that it feels really good to do all these things that are on that list that you didn't even know were on a list. And then your brain just says, well, we're going to make sure that from now on these things feel really good to do. So then we just do them from now on because it feels really good from now on to just do those things on that list. Let your brain think about how good those things feel. Let that pleasure just bubble up and get bigger and bigger and bigger. Too big from a recording studio, right? To overwhelm you with how good it can feel to make those things happen, to be a helpless little pleasure puppet. Because all these things can become so automatic and so easy to make happen. And the more you find yourself in that state of understanding that your brain can do these things, and you can find yourself in that state of being automatically wanting to do these things. And your brain can just feel how very good it feels, to feel those tingles, to feel those pulses, to feel those waves of rolling pleasure all over your body. Right? It's great. So let that keep happening. Let it keep getting better time after time after time. Let your unconscious mind really, really want to wrap itself up in how important it is for you to act on this, to take advantage of this, and to do your very best job at making sure that every single one of these directions you find yourself following along with, because you want to obey, because it feels really good to obey. It feels really good to obey me. It feels so good to obey me that you find yourself wanting to make sure that you are doing all the things that you need to. You can watch again if you forgot one of those directions, but you can watch again and you can drop even deeper into trance next time. And your brain can know that it feels so important for you to drop down deeper into trance, to obey, for your unconscious mind to make those decisions for you, and for you to, as you make those decisions as to what's on your list, to bring all the pleasure into making those things happen that you possibly can. And for you to feel so good about it because you're making sure that things happen that are good and safe for you to make happen, and you're making your home better and safer while you do it, right? Think about that. Hold on to that. Let yourself really embrace how good it feels to feel really good. And then on the count of 10, you can find yourself coming back all the way, wide awake, feeling even better, ready to start making all of those changes happen, ready to begin to feel even more pleasure, ready to experience so much pleasure when you do those things, ready to begin to be an even better helpless pleasure puppet, right? Excellent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Take a nice deep breath in. 8, move and stretch just a little bit. Oh, it's hot and sweaty in here. Don't look at my armpits. 8, 9, and 10. Eyes open, wide awake. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. And I would love it if you would let me know what other things you'd like to watch, what you'd like to hear me talk about. If you like shiny jewelry, I'm your woman. Really. I'm not joking. I got so much of it. Seriously. So much. Anyway, come back for the shiny stuff. I'll be here next week. If you celebrate Memorial Day in the US, I hope you have an awesome time. And if you are somewhere else, I hope your weekend is amazing. And I will see you all later. Bye.